Hey everyone, did you know right now there is a government issued, government guaranteed bond that's paying 7.12% on an annualized basis? Now, how the heck is this possible in today's low interest rate environment that the government can issue a bond that high? Well, in this video, we're going to be covering what this bond is, all the inner workings of this bond, and how this interest rate is set. So if you're interested in allocating to safe money that's earning a high interest rate, watch till the end of this video, learn the benefits of this type of bond as well as the drawbacks. Now, before getting into the content, I want to take a second and thank everyone who's part of this growing community that we have here on YouTube, who've subscribed to our channel. And thank you for taking time out of your day to watch our channel each and every day. You guys are fantastic. For those that are wanting to learn how to gain more from their retirement, build a better plan, make sure you hit the subscribe button. You'll be notified of all future videos that we release, and we're not stopping anytime soon. So let's get into talking a little bit about these type of bonds and talking about interest rate environment in general. So you might have seen on the thumbnail a shirt that I'm wearing that says bonds suck. Now, this is a little bit of a fun joke. Tony and I purchased these shirts a few years ago, and it's also a little bit of a pattern interrupt. So I certainly don't mean that all bonds suck. This bond can have that we're going to be talking about in this video, can have a place in given retirements. But the reason we say bonds suck right now is essentially where the interest rate environment is relative to your hurdle rate. And I'll talk about what hurdle rate is in a sec here, but if we look at US Treasuries from 1 month to 30 years, we can see that even if you're locking your money up for 30 years, you're earning less than 2% on bonds right now. Okay, which in terms of your hurdle rate, it means you're losing money. So what is this hurdle rate that I'm talking about? Well, there's two things that you need to be thinking about inside of your hurdle rate. The first are the expenses that you're paying for investing. Now, if you're a DIY investor, these might be very low, but if you're paying an advisor, let's say 1%, and you're earning, let's say 1.5% on a treasury bond, a 10-year treasury, okay, you're really only earning 0.5% because again, 1% is leaving that yield that you're paying to your advisor. Okay, so keep that in mind. The yields that you are earning might be far less than you might think. The other hurdle rate we need to be talking about is obviously inflation. Okay, so inflation's running very hot right now. The last 12-month report saw inflation at 6.2%. Okay, so if we think in terms of, let's say, earning 1% or 1.5%, paying out 1% to our advisor, and then having to overcome a 6.2% hurdle rate from inflation, again, all of these bonds right here are losing money. At the very least this year, I think we'll continue to lose money depending on where we see inflation go from here. And again, it's a little bit hyperbole saying bonds suck. We're saying they suck right now, and most bonds suck right now. Part of the reason is basically this interest rate environment that we're seeing. Interest rate cycles last a very long time. We've seen basically what I would say is the best bond bull market we've ever seen over the last 40 to 50 years, from 1980 until now. The reason being is because as interest rates fall, that's very good for bonds. Bonds looked very good relative looking back into history. Now, if we're sitting here in the mid 80s and bonds are yielding something like 10%, we would be huge fans of bonds. So again, the context of us saying bonds suck, one is kind of fun. It's a little bit hyperbole, but also in terms of current interest rate environment, I think it's true in most cases. And again, thinking where interest rates can go, they can continue to go down. This bond bull market can continue for a little while. They can stay the same, where bonds are losing to inflation, or they can rise. And again, as interest rates rise, that will be very bad for bonds. And so what is the bond that we're talking about earning this 7.12% mystical return? Well, something called an I bond. And when we compare it to other bonds of 30-year length, we can see that they are completely trumping the yields on other treasury bonds. So how is this possible? What the heck is an I bond? Many retirees aren't familiar with these I bonds. Well, an I bond is an inflation-adjusted bond with essentially two interest rate elements to it. The first is a fixed interest rate element. This will be tied directly to where interest rates are right now. The second is a variable inflation rate element. This is going to be something that changes every 6 months, regardless of when you purchase this I bond. So it's important to note, I bonds don't have any interest rate risk. They will not be hurt by interest rates rising. Okay, and bonds adjust semi-annually, or I should say the variable interest rate adjusts semi-annually. So the first bond that you purchase, this 7.12% annualized rate, you will see for the first 6 months. And at that point, it will change and adjust to wherever this variable inflation adjustment is at that point. Okay, so let's go over this. Let's say you buy a bond in January. You're going to see the interest rate apply from January 1st to July 1st. Okay, and you can see regardless of when this bond is issued within your account, you're going to see that first 6 months you have that guaranteed, essentially that variable rate, and then at that point the variable rate will change. So understanding this rate, again, there's two elements: the fixed rate as well as the variable inflation rate. So the fixed rate, because of how low interest rates are, is at 0%. This will not adjust based on when you purchase an I bond with this fixed rate. You will see this fixed rate as long as you hold the bond. Now, these fixed rates have been higher in the past when interest rates have been higher in the past. The variable rate, and why this bond is earning right now a 7.12% annualized rate, is this inflation rate. So again, the I bond in general is something to overcome inflation. You're not earning huge yields on the fixed rate. It's meant to keep up with inflation. So again, this is a 6-month inflation rate. It's based on CPI. Okay, and it will adjust going forward in the future. If inflation's higher at that point, you'll see a higher rate adjustment at that point. If inflation's lower, you'll see a lower inflation adjustment. Okay, so where has this variable rate been in the past? This is CPI going back into history. This 0% line right here, I'm just going to highlight. We've seen points before where we've seen deflation. Does this mean this I bond would be losing interest because we've seen inflation with this variable interest rate lose? The answer is no. It can never go below 0. So during a deflationary environment, you'll be earning 0% on this bond. Okay. Will you ever see this interest rate higher? Yes, potentially. If inflation rises higher through time, like it's been in the past, okay, you will see a higher yield than 7.12% on an annualized basis. Okay, right now, again, inflation's running very hot. So if inflation runs back down and we see normal rates that we've seen over the last 2 decades, around 2 to 2.5%, again, you will see this bond adjust down to inflation because of that variable rate. So how do you buy these I bonds? I would recommend the easiest way for most investors is going to be go to treasurydirect.gov. This is a government website. It allows you to create an account and start buying I bonds. So if you're an individual, you have to have a social security number and meet one of these 3 conditions: be a U.S. citizen, a U.S. resident, or a civilian employee of the United States. Now, again, there's 2 ways you can purchase these bonds. Electronic bonds right here through the Treasury Direct website. You have to purchase at least $25 worth of bonds, but then you can purchase up to 1 cent increments from there. If you're buying a paper bond, these are denominated in, I believe, essentially 5 different denominations: $50, $100, $200, $500, $1,000. Okay, so again, it's easiest to buy this electronically through the Treasury Direct. You don't have to worry about keeping a paper bond and whatnot. And so again, electronically, you can have a lot more customization versus paper bonds, less customization. Now, the drawback for these bonds, yes, they're earning 7.12% on an annualized basis, but an individual can only purchase up to $10,000 in these bonds through the Treasury Direct website, and then an extra $5,000 in paper bonds using your federal income tax refund. So if you had a $5,000 tax refund, you could purchase additional paper I bonds. So this is a huge drawback because if you're an investor, let's say with $3 million, obviously buying $10,000 worth of I bonds doesn't make that large of a difference in your situation. It's important to note if you're married, each of you can buy up to $10,000 and an additional $5,000 each for off your federal tax income refund. Okay, taxation of these bonds, they earn the interest accumulates within the bond. Okay, so you're not receiving an interest check each and every month, each and every year, semi-annually, anything like that. It accumulates within the bond, and then when you redeem the bond, essentially that's when you earn that interest or realize that interest. Interest is federally taxed. It's not state or locally taxed, and you have a choice in how you want to report interest from year to year. You can report interest each and every year and pay that interest each and every year on your tax return, or you can wait until you redeem the bond in order to pay taxes on the interest. Now, how do you redeem a bond? Okay, well, there's essentially 2 ways because there's 2 ways to purchase a bond. There's 2 ways to redeem a bond. So there's a couple important things you need to know about redemption. First off, you have to wait at least 12 months in order to redeem this bond. Okay, so for instance, in 6 months, let's say inflation's back down to, let's just say 0%, and all of a sudden this bond is earning 0%. Well, you only got that 7.12% on that semi-annual basis, and then you're going to see the second 6 months, it adjusts down to 0. Well, you have to wait at least 12 months before you redeem this bond at all and earn any of that interest rate. Okay, if you cash in an I bond before it's 5 years old, you're going to actually have to lose another 3 months of interest. Now, that might not be the biggest deal in the world, depending on how you're using this I bond within your retirement. But again, it's important to know if you've held it for over 5 years, you earn all of that interest. These I bonds earn interest for 30 years. And basically, how you redeem them, if you're redeeming them electronically, you can do so right through this Treasury Direct website. Just like buying them, you have to redeem a minimum of $25, but then you can redeem in 1 cent increments. For paper bonds, again, you have to redeem based on those denominations. And you have to go into a financial institution, something like your bank, in order to redeem those bonds. Okay, so again, it's important to understand where I bonds may fit into your retirement. First off, it's very important to understand what they are and what they aren't. So a 7.12% return seems fantastic right now, and it is relative to where we're seeing inflation. Okay, or I should say it's keeping up with inflation. Most assets right now are being hurt by inflation. But again, put the 7.12% annualized return in context. The only reason it's this high is because inflation is running this high. So these bonds are just meant to keep up with inflation. Okay, they're still earning that fixed interest rate of 0%. So they're not earning anything up and above inflation. They're just keeping up with inflation. Unfortunately, a huge drawback is you can only purchase in small lots. The maximum for a given individual, $15,000. If you're in a married couple, you could double that to $30,000. For most people that won't have that large of a refund, you're looking at a $10,000 purchase at most. However, these can be a great alternative for some retirees that are planning on holding cash for a purchase in the next few years. Now, again, you're going to give up 3 months of interest. If you redeem this within 5 years, you need to wait at least 12 months. But let's say somebody's planning on purchasing and making a new vehicle purchase in a year and a half, and they're worried about inflation. Okay, well, you can purchase a bond, an I bond, hold it for more than 12 months. In a year and a half, redeem that bond. You'll lose 3 months of interest. But again, you've kept up with inflation at a lot better rate than you would have just holding that money in cash. So it can be a decent cash alternative for those that need money more than 12 months away. So again, hopefully this kind of explains I bonds in general. I find I bonds are something that not as many retirees know about. And again, based on where inflation is, these can be a fairly attractive bond relative to some of the other bonds that are currently out there. So always remember, you don't need more money. You need a better plan. Let me know if there's any questions in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Make sure if you're not subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.